Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm getting ready to head into work and wanted to chat with y'all a little bit about budgeting, particularly budgeting in uncertain economic times. We find ourselves in the midst of, definitely uncertain times. You know, we're seeing the market fluctuate and go down quite a bit. We are seeing costs of goods and in services increase. We're seeing wages increase, but the threat of mass layoffs and things like that are on the horizon. And this certainly isn't fear-mongering at all. Like I said, uncertain times. I'm not calling them bad times. It's just kind of hard to tell what's going to happen over the next year or so, considering what we've seen happen with the pandemic and supply chain issues and all of that. So I'm calling them uncertain times. But I just wanted to talk about budgeting during these sorts of times. If you're not budgeting, or if you've fallen off the bandwagon of budgeting the way that you know you should, and I've been there, now is definitely the time to start. You know, during great economic times, it's easy to kind of fall off, like I said, the bandwagon of telling your dollars where to go. You can kind of float. You know, maybe things are cheap, gas is cheap, you're making good money. You know, like we think about the housing market, right? Like you don't really need to really think about how much you're spending on a house. You just need to buy a house, and you're willing to pay a lot more for it than maybe you should. But when you are in hard times, things become a little tighter, right? So I would just encourage you all, if you're not telling your dollars where to go, to do so. How do you do that? Well, it's really simple. I'm not going to direct you toward a specific spreadsheet. I found one years ago, a Google Doc that I use, and I tell my dollars where to go. It was a pre-built spreadsheet. It had all my categories listed all out for me: internet bill, gas bill, water bill, electric bill, groceries, car repairs, spending, investing. All of those line items were laid out for me, and I would encourage you to find a spreadsheet that has everything laid out for you. Reason being is it's really easy to forget some of the spending categories that you have. So if you have one that's laid out for you, then it just makes it a little bit easier to remember those things. So find one. Just Google free budget spreadsheet or free budget spreadsheet Google Doc, and you'll be able to find one. And you need to build out your spreadsheet. And what you might find, it might be one of two things, maybe one of three things. You might be spending more than you thought you did when you line everything out, which is kind of the most common one. You might be spending less and have more monthly margin than you thought you did, and you don't really know where it's going because you don't have much to show for it. That's pretty common as well. Or you might be right on pace. You might be spending and making exactly kind of what you thought you did, and that's great. But seeing where all your money's going and then adjusting is super important. So if you list everything out and you realize that you have $1,000 a month extra after all your hard expenses, and you don't have anything to show for it, you're not saving or investing every month, it's time to adjust. It's time to button up. It's time to assign those extra dollars every month to something. And during these times, what I'm doing is I'm assigning those dollars to saving more. I'm becoming a little bit more diligent on not just kind of frivolously spending that extra monthly margin that I talk about if you've listened to the podcast or watched my other videos. I'm being more stringent upon where that money goes. I'm not letting it float away, right? Because in these times, if I were to get laid off from my job, or the cost of gas keeps increasing, or the cost of food starts to dramatically increase even more so than it is, I'm going to need something to fall back on, right? And of course, this is on top of the emergency fund that hopefully you already have in place, right? That 3 to 6 to maybe 8 month emergency fund. I was just reading an article, I don't remember where, I think it was on Yahoo Finance, but I don't know who wrote it, where they were talking about, hey, having a 12-month emergency fund right now might be a wise decision, right? It's really hard to stay diligent with saving if you're not budgeting and telling your money where to go. So basically the moral of the story is, during these uncertain economic times, if you're not assigning your dollars a job, if you're not saving, if you're not investing, then I would certainly encourage you to do so. That's all I had for you today. Hope you guys are doing okay. Talk to you soon.